going to end today with some transfer speculation. We'll get to Vinny Jr. in just a second and what on earth is going on there. Is it just a ploy to get him more money to stay at Real Madrid? But what about some of the players that might be leaving South America? All those wingers, Tim, coming to Europe. What are you hearing about potential moves for players in the Brasileirão potentially coming across to Europe?
Well, most of them are already there, and it's astonishing now the age. They're almost ripped out of the womb by the European clubs. It's something that can go right, but it can also go radically wrong. And if you think, say, Don, an 18-year-old footballer can be immature for an 18-year-old, because focused on the game so much. They're not going out and doing the stupid things like stealing traffic cones and taking them home. That is a kind of rite of passage.
That was the glory days. That was the glory days.
So an 18-year-old completing his transition from adolescence to adult in a foreign culture where he doesn't speak the language, there's obviously going to be times when that goes wrong. But that's the way that the market has gone. So with the exception of Ecuador, there were pretty old squads that the South American sides took to this World Cup. You mentioned there are only 2 Brazilians under 25, and the youngest Uruguayan was Pelistri, who's 24 going on 25. Argentina, well, there's Nico Paz, who's Europe-born, and Valentin Barco, who's been there for a while as well. So a lot of that talent has already gone. It's already there. Probably the biggest one that could move in the next couple of weeks is the former Nottingham Forest midfielder, Danilo Santos, as he became. Left-footed, great engine, very versatile. 4 substitute appearances for Brazil in the course of the World Cup. I think he was probably hoping to be involved a little bit more and give himself a platform. Suffered the injury with Forest, came back to Botafogo in Brazil. Botafogo can't afford to keep him. He will definitely be moving on. The big Brazilian giants, Flamengo and Palmeiras, they would both take him, but he would want probably a Premier League club that's in the Champions League. That is where he would want to go. There's been talk of Botafogo wanting to send him to Zenit in Russia and then getting the winger Luis Enrique back from there, but I don't think Danilo Santos will want that. So that's probably the biggest one in South America to look for at the moment, simply because anyone else who has shown much talent is already there.
Vinny Jr., what are you hearing about that, Tim? And how on earth did that end up with an Arsenal link with a new contract potentially on the horizon at Real Madrid?
Well, I think this is a possibility. I mean, there's a number of reasons why we think this could happen. One is, remember the old Alex Ferguson thing at United? When you win the league, that's the time to buy. Sometimes when he comes second, he wouldn't invest. He would show faith in what he had. It's great when you win to buy, because it just when you win and you go out and buy, because it just freshens things up. We're not resting on our laurels. Onwards and upwards we go. From a Vinny perspective, well, there's 1 year left on his contract. He can go in a year's time for free. So Real Madrid, could they cash in now? Would that make sense because there aren't that many clubs who could afford him. Arsenal would be one of them, and Madrid, well, they made a problem for themselves, didn't they, when they brought in Mbappe? It's a problem both tactically and of egos. In terms of the tactics, Vinny is a left winger who wants to cut in, and Mbappe, the space that he most likes, he likes dropping and drifting wide on the left there to cut in. So you've got 2 key players who both really want the same space, and also you've got the thing there that Vinny won 2 Champions Leagues for Real, and then so he's entitled to think I'm king of the hill, and then Mbappe comes in, and he is obviously given king of the hill status. Can anyone make that work? Ancelotti couldn't make that work. No one has been able to make it work subsequently. So you can see reasons that make this feasible. Whether he would see this as a step downwards to leave Real Madrid, it would be, I think, the first genuine top-ranked Brazilian superstar to go to the Premier League. Estevan could well develop into that, and it's interesting that the Premier League managed to seduce Estevan Had he been fit, maybe Brazil's campaign would have been different, because he had been shaping up as the main man in Ancelotti's team. But it'd be a huge feather in the Premier League's cap to bring in the biggest star in the Brazilian national team at the moment. And I can see a few reasons why it is at least possible. It's getting quite good traction in Brazil. There are a lot of Arsenal fans in Brazil. They got into the Premier League just at the time when Arsenal were, strangely to someone whose sympathies lie at the other end of the Seven Sisters Road, when Arsenal were exciting and glamorous. So it would go down pretty well, I think, in Brazil for him to make that move. So at this moment in time, and I'm aware that my learned friends are closer to this one and may have more of an inside track, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I think that the reality of this is that this is no longer a football story or football issue. It's about egos, and it's about Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president. He doesn't want to be seen as being backed into a corner by Vinny Jr. and Vinny Jr.'s people. Equally, Vinny Jr. has an ego as well. He doesn't want to be seen as, like you said, Tim, not only second to Kylian Mbappe in the pecking order, but to Jude Bellingham as well. That, you know, Real's 3 superstars went to the World Cup this summer. 2 came back with their reputations enhanced, and Vinny came back with his reputation the same as it was, really, maybe diminished a little bit, having had a good but not a great World Cup for Brazil. So 2 people that want to come out of this as winners. Vinny, I don't think really wants to go to Arsenal or the Premier League. I think he wants to stay at Real Madrid. I think he wants to be a top dog there, like you say. I don't think Perez wants to sell him, but equally, if these two kind of egos clash, then there's going to be one loser and one winner. And I'm not quite sure at this stage who it's going to be. But ultimately, I don't think Arsenal can afford this deal. I think that there's a lot of figures being bandied around about Vinny's wages, around £400,000 a week. Well, he's out of contract in a year's time. So when he's out of contract as a free agent, he could command twice that, maybe even £1 million a week. Arsenal aren't going to pay anything like that. Real Madrid won't pay that, but they'll get more at Real with his image rights, etc. So there's a lot of kind of complications in this. But I saw what Don said about 4 or 5 days ago when it started. This, to me, smacks of Vinny Jr. wanting to get a better contract out of Real Madrid, wanting to strengthen his position at Real Madrid, wanting a bit of love. And if Arsenal are being used as a tool to get that, fair enough. And also Arsenal, by the way, are getting plenty of kind of positivity out of this as well, because it makes them look like a club that's ready to be very ambitious. They're challenging for one of Brazil's best players. This is a transfer that is going to shock everybody. So even if they don't get it, they've been linked with him. So everybody wins. But I still think at the end of the day, Vinny will stay at Real Madrid, whether a new contract or not. But I don't think he'll go this summer.
Going to end with one more. I want to start with you, Don, and then Tim, you can pick up after Don's answer. It's to do with Endrick, one of the plethora of Brazilian wingers that they are producing. He had his loan spell last year at Lyon. Do you think it's probably beneficial from his perspective and for Real Madrid and the Brazil national team, Don, if he was to move away on loan again? Roma, someone you cover in Serie A, have been strongly linked with him.
Yeah, I think off the back of the conversations with Vinny Jr., I think it's a case of Jose Mourinho sitting down with the players and looking them in the eye and asking them and demanding what he wants from them. And if Endrick doesn't want to play wide, he wants to play through the middle, then obviously he's got a problem unless Jose sees him as a number 9. I think you've got to be very careful, I think, as a young player, when you make the move to the likes of Real Madrid, and you have to make that move. You've got to make the move. You've got to back yourself. You've got to believe in your own ability. The difficulty is when you start getting shipped out on loan here, there, and everywhere, you become a little bit of a nomad. And it's not so much about getting forgotten. It's trying to nail down a regular place, because, you know, you're a young lad. You're trying to make your way in life, never mind trying to play for the likes of Real Madrid. So you're trying to forge these relationships with your teammates. You're trying to find yourself as a person. You're trying to find yourself as a player. You're playing in different positions, which is hard, especially in a dressing room like Real Madrid, where it's very political. So you haven't really got a say, especially when you're young. You haven't really got an opinion. So I think it's a case of Jose sitting down with Vinny Jr. and I think Endrick and saying, listen, this is what I demand. Are you willing to do it? You might be on the bench every now and again. Are you going to be happy with that? Would you benefit if you're Endrick going on loan to Roma for a year? Absolutely. Go and play in Serie A, but make sure you churn out the games. But then I think at some point when you hit an age and when you hit a number where you've got your appearances behind you, you then have to settle down and churn out 25, 30 games a year. That's more beneficial for you as a player.
The big problem with this, Tim, seems to be that Endrick's representatives don't really have much of an interest, according to reports, in him going out on loan again, just because of what Don said.
Indeed, yeah. Although he did very well on loan on and off the field. He knuckled down and learnt French very, very quickly. He's quite an impressive young man. You know, I think he will take positive things from all of this experience, that the people that he's played with. But there are a number of problems here, isn't it? One is that he went to a club that, frankly, didn't need him. You know, Madrid, he came exactly the moment that Real Madrid was signing Mbappe. So you think, well, where's he going to fit in? And the other, and I think Don alluded to this, is what is he? We're still at a stage in his career where you don't know exactly what he is. And he certainly wouldn't see himself as a wide striker. Is he a number 9? Does he play just behind the main striker? And it's hard, I think, for, you know, in the days when we grew up, everything was like 4-4-2. And you had your Toshak and you had your Keegan, and you knew where everyone fitted. With the systems that they use today, for that type of striker, I think it's harder to find a place. I think of, say, Brazil when they won the World Cup in 1994. It was Bebeto, Romário up front with Bebeto. What would Bebeto be nowadays? You know, he's just made for the second striker in a 4-4-2. When you come away from those, where do you fit him in? And I think Hendrik's going through some of those problems of what exactly is he? Because at some point as a footballer, I think you must define yourself. What do I do best? What is my function?
Really enjoyed that today. Thank you for your time. And if you've got anybody in the closet that's thought, I thought this was only going to be half an hour, then they can come out right now. Thanks to Augie. Thanks to Jules, who joined us at the start about Zinedine Zidane. Thanks to Hutch. And to Tim. We'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.